Hello and welcome. My name is Dawn Durham, and I'm a contributing educational consultant to Pennsylvania's Training and Technical Assistance Network's multi-tiered system of support, MTSS initiative. The session you are about to view is referenced as a quick pick. It is intended to help you build your knowledge base around a specific topic. Today, we're going to be talking about transactional and transformational leadership practices and their relevance within viable and sustainable tiered systems of support. The mission of the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network is to support the efforts and initiatives of the Bureau of Special Education and to build the capacity of local educational agencies to serve students who receive special education services. Our goal for each child is to ensure individualized education program IEP teams begin with the general education setting with the use of supplementary aids and services before considering a more restrictive environment. Pennsylvania's multi-tiered system of support is a standards-aligned, comprehensive school improvement framework for enhancing both academic and behavioral health outcomes for all students. In Pennsylvania, response to intervention, RTI, refers to the methodology that is used to determine how slow is slow and how low is low as an alternative to ability achievement discrepancy within the specific learning disability SLD determination process. Pennsylvania's MTSS model represents an integrated system, meaning that cross-disciplinary teams use a problem-solving process to facilitate shared ownership for achieving academic and behavioral goals using a continuum of evidence-based practices and reliable and valid data sources. The academic side of MTSS, standards-aligned, high-quality core literacy, mathematics, and STEM instruction, is delivered within the context of culturally responsive practices, positive behavioral supports, and family engagement. There are key components that form the foundation of Pennsylvania's MTSS framework. If a well-articulated, well-designed tiered system is in place, you should realize efficient, effective, and sustainable outcomes. Today, we will discuss the role that transactional and transformational leadership plays within a tiered system. These practices will be nested within the larger context of first and second order change as we work to sustain MTSS implementation and outcomes. Leadership has been identified by the National Implementation Research Network, NIRN, as one of the key implementation drivers within the system's change process, particularly if we want our efforts to be long-lasting, or what we call sustainable. Within tiered systems of support, we view leadership as an activity that is most impactful when it is highly visible and uniformly shared and/or distributed. Today, we're going to focus on two types of leadership, transactional and transformational. I would also like to encourage you to reflect on your leadership skills and how you might intentionally channel your unique traits and actions toward effective MTSS implementation. If you are a member of the school community, then you are naturally a member of the continuous school improvement team and a leader. So what exactly do we mean by transactional and transformational leadership? And what is the difference between the two? Let's explore transactional leadership first. Transactional leadership is characterized by a focus on desired outcomes, recognition of accomplishments, and provision of praise and constructive feedback to staff. Transactional leadership is about actively monitoring standards set forth for the team and addressing any issues that arise. Transactional leaders are often in response or management mode to real situations in real time. Constructive transactional leadership is when a leader sets goals, clarifies outcomes, recognizes accomplishments, gives praise when necessary, and provides feedback. This form of transactional leadership is optimal because it is the most effective out of the different types of transactional leadership. When we see transactional leadership operationalized within tiered systems, it might look like the following: allocating 90 minutes for reading instruction and allocating 60 minutes for core math instruction. A school-wide positive behavior support plan has been adopted and is reinforced consistently. Professional learning communities, PLCs, have been established around specific topic areas. In contrast, transformational leadership is focused on transforming the system, evolutionizing, not revolutionizing the system, so to speak. Transformational leaders establish challenging expectations and influence from a position of moral imperative and ethics. They stimulate new ways of looking at old problems through coaching, mentoring, and empowerment. Transformational leaders do not react to the environment. Instead, they join with others to co-construct and/or co-create a more ideal environment based upon collective visioning. Transformational leadership practices serve to shape the culture of the school. For example, in a tiered system of support, the adoption and implementation of evidence-based practices matched to student needs is non-negotiable. In literacy, for example, practitioners would be deepening their understanding of the science and application of the empirical reading research using resources such as language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, letters, and the methodologies that are most effective for teaching reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Let's pause for a minute. Think about the current tools and resources that inform professional learning and your own practice. Were they found in peer-reviewed journals and/or derived from the compelling and converging biological and behavioral research that NICHD conducted over a period of 15 years on language-based deficiencies? Secondly, transformational leadership within tiered systems presumes an ecosystematic orientation, meaning that all stakeholders are focused on manipulating variables within their control, such as the curriculum, instruction, and the environment. There is not a focus on innate pathology within the child or the family, or on other variables that are not within our control. Thirdly, there is a tendency to over-assess in education. In a tiered system of support, assessment is administered intentionally to inform instruction and intervention, otherwise called response to intervention. If a particular measure does not lend itself to instructional and intervention improvement, then it is not administered. Let's pause again. Do your measures directly translate to instructional changes and/or intensification during classroom and supplemental intervention opportunities? Next, shared leadership and/or ownership is the kingpin of transformational leadership. Tiered systems rely upon individualized and collective skill and will that is cultivated over time. Knowing what to do, when, why, and for whom is called reflective eclecticism. Practitioners at all levels, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, need access to a comprehensive pharmacy that is fully stocked with a range of evidence-based medicines and the content knowledge to apply those medicines to different needs or conditions, if you will, at different times in a student's learning trajectory. In the last example of transformational leadership, sustainability or institutionalization of any set of practices necessitates that we plan for sustainability from the beginning. In a tiered system, that means engaging all stakeholders in co-constructing what school improvement is going to look like in their setting or context. This means that stakeholders embrace conflict, work through conflict productively, build consensus, and approach school improvement as a continuous cycle. Teams celebrate wins along the way and understand that sustainable change is a function of persistence and practitioner skill and will applied over time. If key people in your system left today, would your tiered system go with them or would it remain? So to summarize, transactional and transformational leadership work synchronously within the system's change process. Both are necessary. The goal is to counterbalance day-to-day transactions like scheduling and the establishment of tiered services and supports within bigger imperatives, like helping all students access high-quality core literacy instruction within culturally responsive, positive school climate. Now I want to segue to two types of change, first-order and second-order change. First-order change is a change that is an extension of past practice. It is an incremental change and is usually the most obvious next step, fine-tuning, if you will, of what is already in place or in motion. First-order changes are usually not met with resistance because they generally do not push on our fundamental beliefs. Second-order change usually manifests as a visible departure from past practice. Second-order change happens because we see new ways of thinking and acting. We see different ways of solving problems. These are examples of when first-order changes become second-order changes. On this slide, you can see the transition from simply establishing a structure toward the use of those structures to accomplish a bigger goal. Look at the first example, instituting smaller classes. Research has shown that reducing class size has the potential to be beneficial if practitioners capitalize on the opportunity to enhance their instruction and customize support for students. Simply reducing the number of students per classroom, however, does not guarantee more effective instruction or a more positive environment. You can see that class reduction in and of itself is a first-order change. It only becomes a second-order change when there is evidence that students are reaching higher levels of proficiency and classroom climate has improved. Similarly, a multi-tiered system of support is a technical structure. It is comprised of technical components such as universal screening, standards-aligned high-quality core instruction, family engagement, professional learning, and others. Second-order change is realized through the implementation of a tiered system when, for example, universal screening data goes beyond data collection to the interpretation of the data to inform the health and changes that we need to improve core math, writing, or reading instruction. Another example of second-order change is when higher percentages of students are receiving what they need at Tier 1 and lower percentages of students need Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports over time. I want you to stop for a moment to think about your MTSS implementation efforts. Are you experiencing mainly first-order or second-order changes? Is your school stuck on implementing the technical aspects of an MTSS framework? What do you need to do to secure in order to realize long-lasting second-order changes? So to bring this all together, first-order changes require transactional leadership. Second-order changes require transformational leadership. As I mentioned, both are necessary to sustain continuous school improvement processes and outcomes. Think about what we just learned about transactional and transformational leadership and first and second order examples of change within tiered systems. Is your MTSS implementation a first or second order change? A helpful way to approach this question is to consider the following. Do your MTSS efforts build upon past school improvement efforts, or are your efforts radically different? Remember that the greater the magnitude of change that is required on the part of your colleagues, the less likely the change is to occur and to be sustained. Is there a collective skill or will, or do you have limited numbers of practitioners who are willing to problem solve and experiment with matching evidence-based practices to needs and adjust instructional intensity based upon common data sources that are heavily relied upon in a tiered system, such as curriculum-based measurement? Is your pharmacy limited with extra-strength Tylenol options, or do you have neurosurgery options for the most challenging to treat issues? Often, there is a mismatch between what students need and what we use to meet their needs. Is that the case? How do you know? What would need to happen in your current MTSS model to move your efforts from first order to second order change? Let's get back to transformational leadership must-have traits that will help you leverage your efforts and realize second order or long-lasting change. On the slide, the items highlighted in blue represent the most salient characteristics or traits of effective leaders. For decades, the issue of leadership has been researched, and we now appreciate the strong relationship that exists between leadership and positive school outcomes. These traits matter and are worth your time and effort to cultivate. To summarize, a transformational leadership is someone who is guided by moral imperative and an adaptive, flexible orientation. Transformational leaders are change agents through and through and embrace problems and problem solving within the context of the school, families, and the larger community. Which of these 7 traits do you possess and/or would you like to cultivate? I would like to leave you with some time to review the quality indicators of a well-oiled MTSS framework. These indicators must be contextualized within the focus of our conversation today: each school's transactional and transformational leadership practices. Take a few moments to review this slide and the following slide to further reflect upon your implementation status. These indices are for you and your team to reflect upon as you move forward with continuous school improvement efforts. If you have evidence that you are able to maintain and sustain these outcomes within your system, then you have become the expert in transformational change within tiered systems. Lastly, I want to take a moment to share a valuable resource with you. The PaTTAN website houses a great wealth of information for practitioners. Please click on Educational Initiatives, then Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, and our live binders. I want to share with you how to access the live binders on the MTSS webpage through the PaTTAN website. If you head to the PaTTAN website and select Educational Initiatives, you'll want to click on Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. On the right-hand side, you will see live binders for the different series we have going on in MTSS. The live binders are really repositories of information for the different series. If we want to select Access Information, and we'll scroll on down to see links to the different series binders that we have, what I want to draw your attention to specifically for this quick pick is the MTSS Bootcamp Live Binder. And you'll notice the access code is there for you. So we'll click that link. We will go ahead and put in our access code, and it will bring up the live binder for the bootcamp. Now you have access to all of the materials in here underneath these tabs. What I want to bring your attention to is this sustainability tab. If I click that, it brings up 2 additional folders. I want to take you to the National Implementation Research Network, or NIRN. Here it connects us to the Implementation Hub. This resource has valuable information in print, in video format, in training modules that you and your team can be using to access information and draw from in regards to maintaining and sustaining change within the MTSS framework. I think you'll find this information to be very helpful. It's not only a great place to start, but it's a good way to maintain that change and continue to grow through the MTSS framework. Again, you have access to all of this material, so please be sure to bookmark this page and use it as much as you feel you need to. I'm glad you took time to think through the MTSS framework and how transactional and transformational leadership are both key components of change. Thank you for your time today.